And welcome back. There are extensive records kept at the National Archives and other agencies, so vast, sometimes it's easy to forget it's filled with individual family histories, ones that can be used to trace your own family line. Linda Harms Okazaki, the president of the Genealogical Society, is still here with us. And joining us now is Grant Dinh, the community relations director for the Angel Island Immigration Station Foundation. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
I'm glad to still have you here. Give us an idea now in terms of, you touched on some of the public records that are very useful for people. Tell us a little bit about the National Archives and how people might be able to utilize them.
So the National Archives is a repository of the people's records, but there are different National Archives branches around the country, and we're really lucky in the Bay Area that we've got the San Bruno Archives. They call it the San Francisco National Archives. There's some great Japanese American records there. There's naturalization papers. There are immigration papers. But probably the best for Japanese Americans are the Assembly Center microfilm holdings. So there's family folders on microfilm where you can go and get all kinds of biographical information on your family. And then, of course, there's the National Archives in Washington, D.C., which has the internment camp files. And then in College Park, Maryland, we've got enemy alien files. So those are pretty interesting.
Yeah, the enemy alien files are very interesting. A lot of information on those. Grant, give us an idea here in terms of, that's a lot of resources, and we're lucky to have so many locally. Give us an example of some of the family history that you've traced, as well as maybe some family people that we're familiar with as well, some well-known people.
Yeah, recently we found Norm Minetta's parents' records in the archives. His mother was a picture bride, and so she had to show that she was married to her husband, that he came over. And we gave Norm, Mr. Minetta, a copy of the records, and he hadn't seen those photographs, I don't believe, or the whole file.
How about for yourself and your family? What did you find out?
It's interesting because one of the ironies of the Chinese Exclusion Act and all the laws that kept the Chinese from coming in is that those who came had to prove that they were either legitimately the descendant of somebody, or that they were related to somebody, or they were a merchant. And the people on the screen are my ancestors on my father's side. My grandfather had to come in and say he was the son of a native. In reality, he wasn't. He had to pretend he was someone else, so he was a paper son. And he had a name that wasn't his real name. So when you look for that file in the archives, you really have to know what name they came under. And ideally, you'll find a family document that has that around, or you'll talk to an elder and say, oh, we're really not Dins, we're really Gongs, or something like that. And so everyone looking for families who came in that period from the exclusion in 1882 up until about the 1940s will have to know their real name that they came under. And that's the time when you talk to your elders, if they're still around, if you're lucky, or dig for papers or whatever you can find, and try to find the real name. And then the people at the National Archives, like Linda said, are really helpful in terms of helping people find the records. If they're not there, they'll give you suggestions on where you can request them from, through Freedom of Information Act and things like that.
Yeah, you have to be pretty organized, right, to know what to look for. I mean, there's all sorts of documents, but you're liable to find family information maybe in records that you either wouldn't think of, or maybe like the enemy alien files where maybe you don't want to look.
Well, maybe you do if you're really looking for some rich biographical information, but you do have to be organized, and sometimes it helps if you take a class, an introduction to genealogy class, just to get started, know what databases are available, what records to look for.
How organized is it to the genealogical societies here? How organized is it, or is there a movement to broaden that?
Well, there's a huge range, from completely disorganized hobbyists up to people who do this to make a living. They do it professionally. So somewhere in the middle of the road works for most people.
You're starting one, right?
A business?
You know, a genealogical one for Japanese Americans?
Yes, the Nikkei Genealogical Society is sort of a grassroots organization based in Los Angeles. People getting together to share tips and that sort of thing.
And Grant, you're starting one on a slightly broader scale,
We have
right?
friends who have talked about starting an Asian American one because there's so many similarities and a lot of people who work on similar topics, and so we're definitely talking to Linda about some ways to coordinate. Right now we have an informal Chinese American Yahoo group that people are welcome to join.
Well, thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Just really a fascinating topic and very informative.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Again, to get more information or to see some of the records yourself, you can go to www.archives.gov. And up next on our show, more on tracing your family history by talking to people in the family. It's not as simple as it sounds, so stay with us.